Hello and welcome to the Strong Girl Squad podcast, where in this episode I have my wonderful client and nutritional therapist Karen joining me. As usual, I got so excited to intro Karen, I forgot to intro the podcast, so this is the little intro now. So let's go. Let's hope you enjoy it. Okay, welcome to my podcast, Karen. Lovely to have you.
Thank you for having me, Rachel. It's a pleasure.
So tell everybody a little bit about who you are and your background.
Okay, I'm a client.
You are
I'm a client.
strong client.
I retrained in nutrition quite late in life. I spent most of my life in corporate, and I qualified in 2020 and went straight into helping COVID
Yeah.
clients. So I've ended up specialising with people who have chronic illness.
Right. Okay.
So cancers, things that you get as you get older, things where nutrition can support metabolic health becomes important. So they tend to be more complicated cases.
Yes. Yeah.
But whatever, most nutritionists, whilst they specialise, so some may specialise in eating disorders, some may specialise in obesity. I mostly specialise in gut health.
Okay. Yeah. So that's going to be very good for my listeners because I did ask for a few questions from my clients and on my Instagram, and we've got lots of really good questions, but quite a lot about gut health. So yeah. Um, Yeah, so like the first question I actually thought was really, really like I was like, wow, what a good question. And that is, why is it that people can stay disciplined when with training but completely lose control with food, especially in the evenings or when they're feeling low? And like, what a great question.
It's a really nice question because I see a lot of your clients in the gym, and one thing they don't lack is discipline.
Yes.
And I would always also say most of your clients, and I know are women, will not lack discipline when it comes to food. In fact, most women spend their lives restricting
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
some way or another. So I would say it's not a discipline problem.
Yeah.
I would say it's a structure problem
Yeah.
and it's a strategy problem.
Yeah.
So if you take the example of late night eating, so you get home and you're tired, and as one client said to me, life's too short to go chopping vegetables. The last thing on your mind is food. You might have to cook for people and you want it to be quick. So lightly not thinking, or you just want stress relief. So you go and get a glass of wine.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the first thing to do is think about how you want to structure your day. And it's just like consistency. It's just like training. It's consistency. And it's what you can manage. So if you're in a calorie deficit phase, I know some people don't use calories. I tend not to. You need a structure for it. So you plan for it. Similarly, if you are following a strategy to get more protein in your diet or more fibre in your diet, you need a structure and a strategy around it. What I would say is that life is a marketing department. So we're more concerned about what's in our environment and rather than what we're eating. And there's lots of studies that would say, I can eat till I'm full, but I'll see something on the TV and I'll go to the fridge because I just fancy something. And you need a strategy around it. So one thing may be meal prep. Another may be, I know I will always structure my meals around protein and plants. And then we can talk about that later. And then anything on from that you can build around. Another strategy may be, I always close the kitchen at 6:30 at night.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
And what's my trigger for that? I'll have a cup of tea. So that's what I do. The kitchen closes at 7. I have a cup of chamomile, and that's it.
Yeah.
And then instead of social media, and because of what I do, I get lots of food images. So I don't want food images after 7 o'clock at night. So you need to think around that. If you are following a calorie plan, how many meals a day do I want? Am I eating 3 meals a day, or am I eating 4 meals a day? How am I going to divide it? So you just need to sort of think ahead. So if you're on 1,500 calories a day, it might be 3 meals of 500. If you're on less, then you divide it equally. So it's just get some basics nailed down for you, and then that's more likely to stop you derailing at your moments of weakness. For me, it's traveling because I can't get the food I want.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the other thing that factors in as well is your biology.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're in the wrong environment and you're hormonal and you're stressed, those 3 things are a pretty bad planetary setup for going to go and pick something up that you really didn't want to eat. If you've got a structure for that and a strategy for it, you're more likely to cope with that.
Yes. And so what would you say to people? I actually used to be like it. I'm not anymore, but I did used to be like it. So yeah, I can have my structure, I can have my meal plan and things like that. But then when I do get that craving for some chocolate in the evening, but I am one of those, or I used to be one of those people that it was actually biscuits for me rather than chocolate. I'd open a packet of biscuits. I'm just going to have one. Or I'll just have another one. Then the whole packet's gone. Like, is there anything that I could at that time that I could have used to have stopped myself eating the whole packet? I've got a few things that I do suggest now, but which I'll mention to you in a second. But yeah, I just wondered what your opinion was.
It's a case of picking your poison. I mean, you pick there something called a hyperpalatable food. So you've got a combination of fat
Yeah.
and sugar together. So it's engineered to make you eat the whole packet.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why I would say life's a marketing department, because there are people that create these things to make you eat the packet. So what I would say is, could you have had popcorn? Would that have satisfied? Popcorn's a pretty good
Yeah.
snack.
Yeah.
Or maybe just a couple of squares of chocolate. Would that have satisfied you? So I've got some props here, Rachel. So
Yeah.
I have this every day.
Do you go 90?
I go 90.
Hardcore,
I know,
Karen.
I know. But I only need a square.
Yeah, I have 2 squares of 70, 72, I think.
And, there's not really a lot in this apart from chocolate. And it's high fibre, which we can
Yeah.
come on to later on.
Yeah.
So, it might be popcorn, it might be, what is it? If it's salty, it might be olives.
Yeah.
If it's salty, it might be popcorn. If it's sweet, some high strength chocolate. Try and stay away from the stuff that's in the packet.
Yeah.
But if you want the snack and you've got a craving, have it, but have your snack store ready to go so you know what you're going to go for rather than go for the biscuit barrel.
Yeah. Because what I tend to say to people is, if it's not a fuck yes, it's a fuck no. So, if you're not like fully enjoying it and every single mouthful of it, stop it. Like, even if you're halfway through a piece of cake and you kind of check in with yourself and go, yeah, it's all right, just stop eating it. Like, if it's not a fuck yes, it's a fuck no. Like,
Normally the first mouthful is the
yeah,
best.
yeah, that's
After,
it.
after that, it's just you're just eating for the sake of it. I always say that about a glass of champagne. The first mouthful of champagne is really nice.
Yeah.
Anything after that.
Yeah, because I remember a few years ago actually I went with for a walk with some clients and one of them brought her children and we went for a nice walk, went stopped at a coffee shop. The kids had some chocolate cake and when we were about to leave I was like, "Oh, they've left half their cake." And the mum was like, "Yeah, they're pretty good. They know when they're full." And I was like, when did we kind of switch? And I would have a piece of cake and I feel like I have to eat it because I've got a piece of cake. But actually, yeah, if you check in with yourself halfway through and really slow down, usually you don't need the last half.
No, that's right. I mean, speaking of cake, a lot of your clients work in offices,
Yes,
and I always used to be beware of the cake terrorist.
yes,
There was always somebody who wanted to feed you with cake,
yeah,
either because it was a birthday, somebody was upset about something, they just fancied some, and they're always trying to force feed you. And I used to call them cake terrorists.
yeah, yeah,
Avoid like the plague. They're lovely people
yeah,
and they do nice cake, but they're cake terrorists.
yeah. And I always used to have a bit of a rule of like, if it was homemade, I would have some, but if it was a Tesco's, not that there's anything wrong with a Tesco shop bought cake, but it's not worth it for me. Like, but if it's a homemade cake, I'll quite happily have some.
Yeah,
But
if you're going to have it, enjoy it.
that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. The next question is very, very similar, so we might not be able to add too much more. But if someone feels like they've completely lost control with their diet, but they're still showing up to train every week, where and how should they start fixing things? And I guess it is, like you said, it's like having those structures in place, like shutting the kitchen.
Yeah, that's one example. Another one is pick the meal that you know that you can do well at. So go a meal at a time. Um, Not everybody eats breakfast, but or they'll eat breakfast later. But that's the easiest one to go for. Typically, you're at home. Some people are travelling. I can come on to that later on. But one thing that I would say is make sure that the first meal of the day is loaded with protein. Because if it's got protein and fibre in it, it'll sustain you for the day. If you've not eaten very much during the day, you get home, it's dark, it's raining, the kids are moaning, you've had an awful day, and your period's due. And you've not set yourself up for success, have you?
Yes.
Let's face it.
Yeah.
Whereas if you've had a really good breakfast, and I have 2, 3 on rotation, and I know what I'm going to have. I don't have to think about it, so it becomes automatic. Then you've got your breakfast locked down. I know what I'm having for my breakfast. This is it. Even if it's just the same thing all week, you're into a routine. Now, for me, I would go to 40 grams of protein for breakfast. Now, that's somebody coming from somebody that struggled to get 100 grams a day into their diet. But 40 grams of protein is a really good start to the day. And even if you got distracted by a meeting or something, you could probably get through to 2 o'clock in the afternoon on 40 gram protein breakfast if there's enough fibre in it.
Yeah. I also have 2 breakfasts that I cycle through. What are your 2?
I have, I call it a peanut butter and jelly smoothie bowl, which is
Oh,
actually
nice.
not my design. It's a Dr. Gabriel Lyon recipe. And it's got frozen berries. It's got peanut butter powder in it. It's got protein powder. Sorry, I know not everybody has protein powder, but needs must if you're
Yeah, yeah.
traveling.
Yeah.
And it's got chia seeds in it
Nice.
and flax seeds. It's got a lot of
Yeah.
fibre. So you've got 3 or 4 different fibre options, and it's got all the it's got enough protein in it for me, so I can make it. I make 2 or 3 at a time and keep it in the fridge. So that's one. So what are my others? what did I have this morning? Something that I wouldn't normally have, which is just yogurt. And because I was in a rush, I had yogurt and I packed it with fibre. I packed it with chia seeds. It had actually got a shot of coffee in it because I was in a rush. So chia seeds and coffee and yogurt. It sounds revolting, but actually it was really nice. But there's a lot of protein in that because I got 3 scoops of chia in it, and there's about 200 grams of yogurt. So
Yeah, that's it. So I haven't had mine yet either this morning, but I tend to either have, so I change it as to whether I'm having it's a training day or non-training day. That's not, that's my preference, but my training day breakfast tends to be oats, and I either make it with egg whites to add some protein, or I have some Greek yogurt on top, and I have berries and some dark chocolate melted in it. Or I have, if it's a non-training day at the moment, I have scrambled eggs with toast and tinned tomatoes, and in those tinned tomatoes I add like turmeric and paprika, that kind, to give it a little bit of taste. So
oh,
that's
lovely.
yeah,
That sounds really nice. I do have an oat bar that I bake if I know I'm going to train with you,
yeah,
and I can make that in a double quantity, and it travels, so I can
yeah,
slice it up. So, but again, it's packed with protein and fibre, and it keeps me going. And I use grated pear in it for sweetness, or grated apple goes a long way. So because I don't put sugar in my stuff basically, but grated pear sweetens it up quite
yeah,
nicely. And it's just got oats and lots of egg whites,
yeah.
and again, seeds, stuff like that.
Nice. Sounds good. So obviously we've mentioned kind of a few things already about this, but let's talk about the gut health and the metabolic health, especially for women in their 40s and beyond. So how big a role does the gut actually play in body composition, and how do we feel, and how we feel day to day?
Well, most people think about gut as um, how would I describe it? It's about, am I getting enough fibre into poo?
Yeah, yeah,
Or I get bloated and I don't know why.
yeah.
Um, the gut is quite interesting, and the more research that goes on, the more people realise it's connected to hormone health, um, brain health,
Yeah,
in particular, and your immune system. So it affects mood.
absolutely.
Um, it can affect your hormone balance. It's used a lot. I do. One of the areas that I'm interested in is supporting people through cancer. Gut health is the first thing we work on. And you've seen in the news lots of rising cancers, and a lot of it they're pointing towards gut health and actually what people are eating. So you have to almost think about the gut as a second brain,
Okay, yeah,
because it influences so many other parts
yeah,
of the system. And if you can treat your gut right and you feed it properly, it's a bit like going out in the garden. If you're giving it the right stuff, it will flourish. If you're chucking stuff in that you probably used to eat in your 20s, you can't get away with it, unfortunately, when you're older, partly because your gut degrades, but also your hormones are changing, so they need to be supported in a slightly different way. When you talk about metabolic health, let's be clear for people who are listening what we mean by that. So metabolic health is when you start to gain weight,
yes.
or if your blood pressure goes up, or if you've got high blood sugar. Often those three go together, and there's a lot you can do around that with supporting good gut health.
And yeah, because this particular client that asked, she said that since Christmas, she's been deep diving into this herself, focusing on feeding her gut with prebiotics and prebiotics and probiotics, rather than just restricting calories. She's noticed a real shift in body composition and mood. Being perimenopausal, that has felt significant. So yes, and I know that I played around with a little bit of this a while back, and it genuinely helped me as well. So yeah.
Did she do that with supplements or with food? Do you know?
As far as I know, food.
Okay, excellent. Excellent. Good for
Yeah.
her.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not surprised to hear it. I mean, given her age, one of the things that if she's getting the right things in her gut, and she's bowel nutritionists talk about bowel movements all the time.
Yeah.
We're really good about talking about it. But in midlife,
I used to have to send reports to my nutritionist.
you have to keep detoxifying. So you have to have regular bowel movements, because what you don't want is hormonal build-up.
Yes. Yeah.
Because hormones do recirculate, and if you can't deal with waste properly, then it can become problematic. So if she's using food to transport waste out, it makes things a lot easier. And fibre is good for that in particular.
Yes. Yeah.
To make sure that things are moving, because it will absorb all the waste products and it will take it out. And some of the foods are hormone supporting as well.
Yeah. And so with the fibre, how do you actually incorporate more fibre into your diet in a way that like actually tastes good, not like a chore? Because everyone thinks of fibre as being pretty miserable.
Well, first of all, I'd say know how to read a label.
Yeah.
Anything per 100 grams, if it's anything over 3 grams per 100, it's got fibre in it.
Yeah.
If it's over 4, 5, it's a high fibre. I've got some things here to show you. I'll put my glasses on.
Yeah.
What you do is you go a meal at a time.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're eating 3 meals a day, so that's 10 grams a day.
Yeah.
The average person in the UK eats about 18
Right.
grams a day.
Yeah.
So therein lies the problem, but that probably means you're already eating half of your fibre a day. So nutritionists like to add things in rather than take things out. That's what a good nutritionist generally does.
Absolutely.
So if you are, I'm going to put my glasses on here. So,
and I'm just going to say we've got someone come in to fix our radiator. So if anybody does hear some random noises, that's what it is.
So if you've got frozen berries with yogurt.
I love frozen berries. Raspberries. Raspberries are so high, aren't they?
Well, they're also quite low sugar as well.
Yeah.
So if you say 100 grams.
Yeah.
In your yogurt, that's quite a nice portion.
Yeah.
That's 4.4 grams of fibre in that.
Yeah.
There's a bit of fibre in yogurt, so say you're halfway there. So what else do you add in? So you could add in flax.
Yeah.
Now, this is where it gets interesting. So per 100.
Yeah.
28 grams of fibre per 100. So that's a really high fibre product. You only need a tablespoon. I always keep mine in jars in the fridge to keep it fresh.
Yeah.
So keep your seeds fresh. Seeds are your friend with fibre. The other thing you could add is chia seeds.
Yeah.
Or you could sunflower and pumpkin.
Yes. Yeah.
Mixed. Or hemp. So that's your breakfast basically sorted, because I'm bored, I'm going to have the same thing every day. Just change the seeds round.
Yeah.
That's all you need to do. Or even if you can only manage a bit of toast with peanut butter, put some hemp seeds on the top of it.
Good idea.
Because peanut butter, I can't eat this because I eat it out the jar. It's one of my things when you get home at night and you're hungry and you don't know what to eat and you can't stop. You, it's biscuits. For me, it's peanut butter.
Yeah.
But I'm okay in the morning on a bit of
Yeah.
toast, maybe some banana, and then add the seeds in. You've got 10.
Yeah.
That's your 10. So what else is high fibre that I've got on my desk? I've got an avocado somewhere. Oh, here it is. These are really high in fibre.
Yeah.
One of those. So is broccoli. So
Yes.
there's always, you can always find an avocado lurking in the fridge somewhere. Now, what we eat at 9? Bags of frozen veg.
Yeah.
Tray
Yeah.
baked.
Yeah. Bags of frozen veg, they're my favourite. I use the like the steam bags.
Yeah, you can get the
Just
steam
shove it down
bags.
the stove. Yeah.
Or you can, I make mine up for the week. So this is tonight. I don't know what's going in it yet. Could be a stir fry, could be a tray bake. There's probably, I mean, there's 2 portions there.
Yeah.
I'm going to need to bulk it out with some fibre.
Yeah.
So what are the options? Merchant Gourmet straight out the packet. So 4.2 grams per 100. Okay, that's pretty good. Beans, black
2
beans.
seconds, Karen. I've just got to pause you. Well, I won't pause it. I will cut it out. 2 seconds. Sorry, Karen. They've just got to look at the radiator.
Okay.
I'll cut
Are we
this out.
going to keep this in? This could be quite interesting.
Okay, carry on. Sorry.
Look, do you want anything you want me to redo? Or are you going
Go back to where you were with the merchant grains.
Okay, so these are great, Merchant Gourmet, because they're ready cooked, and then you can just add them to your veg, mix it in. So you've got 4.2 grams per 100. So this pack will probably serve 2. So it's a good source of fibre.
Yeah.
Or it could be beans.
Yes.
Black beans, black beans, these are high in fibre. These are 6.9. Or it could be a can of sweet corn that goes in. I'm going to be having a lot of vegetables tonight. These are a bit lower, 2.9 per 100. So there's fibre in it, but not lots.
But not, yeah.
White beans out of a jar, they're ready to cook. But cans or jars, either. What you want when you get home from work is something fast.
Yes, absolutely.
So again, and then all you've got to do is add your protein. So I don't know what I'm going to do tonight. It might be chicken thighs with it. So suddenly you've got your protein and your plants. I can send you some resources for your clients in terms of how to build a plate.
Yes, please.
Whether you're in weight loss mode or maintenance. Because some people do calorie deficit all week, but then on a day a week they'll want to eat normally. So what does that look like?
Yeah.
I can send that to you. But basically, just structure, protein and plants.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the other question, which I thought was very good. So she said, we've spent decades demonizing fat. But the more I look into it, the more it seems like sugar is the biggest issue, especially when we rely on low-calorie, highly processed replacement foods. What does the evidence actually say? And I assume she's meaning like the I've been there, I've done it. They were absolutely disgusting. But the skinny sauces, the Skinny is the brand, like absolutely disgusting. But sometimes I think when you're trying to lose weight, you get so caught up in like, I can't have calories, I can't have this, I can't have this, but I want something sweet, and I still want that, and I still want that. So you buy these kind of diet version things, and they're full of sugar.
I had a cat once who was addicted to Weight Watchers Bakewell tarts.
It doesn't actually, having Carino, who's obsessed with yogurt, like it doesn't surprise me.
Which just goes to show how food is engineered. Because he was absolutely addicted to them.
Yeah.
And by the way, it wasn't me who was eating Weight Watchers Bakewell tarts, it was somebody else in the house. But he could not. He was all over my husband when he had one of these
Yeah.
things. So I will come. Sugar is important.
Yeah.
What I'd like to say now is it's probably less about is it fat or sugar. It's
Yes.
more about ultra processed food and how food is engineered. So if you pick up a packet, if the first two ingredients are flour and sugar, put it down because it's likely to be ultra processed. If it's got long lists of ingredients on it, so I remember when I was studying, I picked up by mistake, a Marks and Spencer's plant-based pizza. And it had got about 50 ingredients in it, of which I recognised 2. It's just completely ultra processed. And that's the problem, because the gut doesn't know what to do with that type of food. And then you eat it and you become hungry. That's normally the problem.
Yeah, because I always say it's not necessarily like I don't actually think we should demonize fat or sugar, because and people kind of say, oh, sugar's addictive. I don't believe sugar in itself is addictive, but the mix, the highly palatable mix of sugars and fats and other things, that
Sorry.
is
Yeah.
what's addictive.
So let's talk about women in midlife, because you hear people say, I've always eaten this way, why has it changed? And I don't understand why now. Why I'm getting fat. There is some truth in it. So when your estrogen drops, it's going to impact other hormones. It's a bit like a game of dominoes. So once those hormones change, everything else changes. So we live in a hormone soup. It's not just about one hormone that you see on Instagram that people single out.
Yes,
You
yeah.
cannot single out one hormone and treat it. It doesn't work like that. But what a drop in estrogen can do, it can affect your ability to use glucose properly.
Right, yes.
And you become what's called insulin resistant. And the best way to describe it is like you're trying to open the door with that's got a rusty lock. As you get older, it becomes more difficult.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you find that it's going on around your waist and you don't know why. But I've not changed anything. What's going on here? Now, you could be insulin resistant. You could have your thyroid could be changing. There could be lots of other things. What I would say, and a lot of your ladies lift heavy, is muscle is a fantastic sponge for glucose.
Yeah.
So whilst you can reduce sugar and carbs and definitely take the simple sugars out, these are fine. There's plenty of carbs in this, 13 grams per 100, but there's no sugar in it. Do you want to have a massive portion? Probably not. But if it's whole, it's okay. And if you're lifting, you're all right. Now, one of the things that can be helpful is to reduce your carbs a little bit, but don't eliminate them. Now, this is my phone ringing. I'm not going to answer it. That looks like... Let's just hope my husband answers it. Yeah, he's answered it. So, if you look at you building a plate, going back to your plate again, half the plate is plants.
Yes. Yes.
Quarter of your plate is protein.
Yes.
What do you do with the rest of the quarter? That's the question. Is it fat or is it carbs? That's for you to decide what you prefer.
Yeah.
Depending on how you're choosing to eat. It doesn't really matter. As long as the plants and the protein are there, you decide whether it's fat or carbs, depending on what your plan and what your structure is.
Yeah.
My carb portion is actually quite small because I am an age where I am carbohydrate sensitive.
Yeah.
So I will have it.
Yeah.
But it's smaller than the protein portion.
Yeah.
But I won't not have carb. because it does help me sleep as well. And we all want to sleep when we're midlife. So have the carb, but don't go overboard with it.
Yeah.
But keep it whole grain.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And for the fat, avocado, it's a nice one. Don't be frightened of fat. Again,
No.
just don't go overboard. In my fridge at home, we've got butter and we've got Olivo spread. I'm the butter eater. My husband likes Olivo because he thinks it's healthy, which I don't agree with because I know what's in it.
Yeah.
But he feels better for having it.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah. I love butter. I can't have butter anymore, but I love it. It's nice salted butter. Do you know what? That's one thing I really miss. Salted butter on sourdough toast. Maybe a little bit of Marmite.
There's not a lot of lactose in it, Rachel. You might want to try.
No, I've tried it. I have tried it. And I can't decide if basically what tends to happen for me with dairy is it then makes my period cramps really, really bad. So at the time it's fine, and I can't quite work out if the correlation is there or not. So at the moment I just,
going without.
Yeah. So, but I will keep trying every now and then.
Trial and error. So
Yeah.
I don't know how I'm going to summarise what we've said here. So I would say fat. I'd say fat and carbohydrates are not the enemy.
Yeah.
It's when it's refined and it's when it's engineered.
Yeah.
Together. That's when it becomes a problem.
Yeah. I agree. So talked about gut health and the foundations to that. So let's get into fueling for our life, because a lot of my listeners are busy, corporate, high-flying women, they're mums, they're trying to fit the gym in around all of that, and obviously then they've got to fuel themselves as well. So how do you think they should be eating, or we should be eating, to maintain focus and energy through back-to-back meetings and long work days? Because I know that when I was in that kind of job, I didn't know anything about nutrition back then, and I would struggle. I'd really struggle.
Yeah, I understand it, and I still do it. I think it depends whether you're travelling or not, because you've got two different scenarios. I think we've already covered the fuel well before you start the day.
Yeah.
There are some people that would like to fast. That's fine if that's their structure and that's what they're working on, and some people cope very well. But if you know you're the sort of person that will fall victim to a cake terrorist in the afternoon, then what I would say is make sure you fuel well. You then the next hazard is when somebody turns up with the Marks and Spencer's platter.
Yes.
For the all-day meeting.
Yes.
Which typically looks like sandwiches, and then these tubs of sausage rolls and mini millionaire bites, and they all get laid out beautifully. And then it just suddenly becomes an obstacle course for people. And the Percy pigs.
Oh yes.
There's Percy pigs everywhere. So this is just
I do love a Percy pig.
This is just a typical scenario. So know what your trigger is. Mine is crisps.
Yes. Yeah.
So do not pick up a packet of crisps. If it's Percy pigs, do not pick up a packet of Percy pigs. So if it's one of those open plated platters, pick up, these little triangles.
Yeah.
So pick up 4 of them. Open them up, take out 4 pieces of bread, take the fillings out, because there's nothing in they put nothing in these things.
No.
So it could be ham or it could be cheese. Take all the fillings out of 2 of them and put them in the other 2.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then suddenly,
I like that.
And then suddenly you've got a proper sandwich. Because if you had 4 triangles of basically 80% carbohydrate, suddenly you've got two triangles that have got decent protein portion in.
Really like that.
So that's one way of surviving. Take your own, whatever you can find in the fridge. Might be a tub of cottage cheese if that's your thing. Pick up a couple of eggs in Pret. Do some nice bowls. Pick the salad bowls or pick the soup. What I'm saying is go prepared.
Yes.
But don't leave yourself hungry and open. So the thing where I can get through the day and then get on the train, and then there are people eating sausage rolls,
Yeah.
which I don't like. So I tend to pick something up at the station. So you can pick up a Pret bowl or a couple of boiled eggs in Marks and Spencer's, or some hummus sticks, some hummus and carrot sticks in Marks, those sorts of things. So you've eaten, and then when you get home, you have eaten, and
The edge is kind of taken off.
and you're not looking at the fridge thinking, what am I going to have? So that's a travel day. If you're working a long day, do your prep, have something ready in the fridge, ready to stick in a pan. I would say that's what I would do. It's very hard if you're cooking for other people.
Yes.
I cook for others. And you suddenly find you've eaten half your meal while you're preparing. It's always better if you don't start that. Sometimes you can't help it.
Yeah.
But keep it simple, is what I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually thinking about that, so when Kieran, when he was dieting a couple of years ago, actually, I think it was, he found that whilst he made his dinner, he'd have a really big prepared salad. So that was like his starter. So he'd eat his salad whilst his dinner was cooking. And then obviously by the time he got to his dinner, his salad had kind of gone and he wasn't as hungry and he didn't have to like, wolf it all down. So yeah, that was, I'd forgotten about that, but that really worked for him. Obviously it's not going to work for everyone, but
You got to, I mean, some people can't help but tasting things as they're going. And then suddenly they've eaten half half again what they were supposed to have.
yeah,
But you can be prepared for it.
yeah,
Even if it's just eating a few olives or something, because they're quite strong tasting.
yes, yeah,
It can stop you from tasting
yeah,
other things while you're preparing the food. So you just need to think about that a little bit more.
yeah. And then obviously you touched on like, don't make yourself hungry. Like, don't allow yourself to go hungry throughout the day so that you're absolutely starving for your dinner. But under eating has an effect on your mood and your decision making and your brain, doesn't it?
For some people, not everybody. A faster will tell you that they're cognitively more sharp if they've not eaten for 12 hours.
Right.
What I would say about that is possibly, but they've trained themselves to do it.
Okay.
If you're somebody that lives from carbohydrate meal to carbohydrate meal, you will find that really hard.
Yeah.
I would say, and you get brain fog, and it's really difficult to think.
Yeah.
If you've got enough protein and fat in you, even if you don't eat carbs, generally cognitively you probably be okay. It's often lack of sleep is the worst thing. So if anybody who's listening that does a long haul flight and you time zones get knocked out of sync, and you wake up, you are hungry and you want carbs.
Yeah.
A faster will tell you, actually don't eat on the plane, you'll feel better the next day. And there is some truth in that. So it depends, and it depends what people are eating, and it depends how they're fueling. But what I would say is, if you've got protein and fat in you, you can pretty much fuel.
Yeah. Cool. And I loved this question because this is very, very typical of my clients. Can you actually lose fat without cutting out the wine, the dinners out, and the foods that you love? I know my thoughts.
Absolutely, you can.
Yeah, that's my thoughts exactly.
But you've got to put structure around it.
Yeah.
It's not free for all.
Yeah, that's it. Like you can't expect to just drink all of the wine and have dinners out 5 times a week and eat the pizza and eat the pasta, and like there has to be a certain amount of cutting back, but you can still have them.
You can. And, if you travel for your job and you've got business dinners, it's really hard
Yeah,
sometimes
yeah,
because you've given a menu of lots of different things. So you can still have the foods you enjoy, but keep it simple. So it might be steak and broccoli on one glass of wine, not
yes,
three.
yeah,
That's fine. Steak, broccoli, and a glass of wine is a perfectly acceptable meal. If you're doing it as a celebration, but you know that you're in a calorie deficit, so pick your day. So say you've got a party on a Saturday night. If you are somebody that counts macros, I don't know, say you're on 1,500 calories a day. I
yeah,
know not everybody
yeah.
is
Yeah,
able to count,
yeah,
but say you're on 1,500 calories a day, and so each meal's 500. So what you can do is you just shave 50 calories off each meal. So you make each one 450 and you save them to that for that day. So that will give you enough for your night out. But it's a treat meal, not a treat day. That's the difference.
and I always say it's not actually that meal, it's how you react to it. So it's after, like, what do you do the next day? Do you just get straight back on track? In that case, that big meal doesn't matter at all. If that big meal then triggers you to have a horrendous morning the next morning, and then you think, oh well, I've had a bad morning, I'm going to have a bad lunch, and like, so it's how you react to it rather than just treating it as an isolation.
Absolutely. And that's why it's a meal, not a day that
Yes.
drifts.
Yeah.
So from an alcohol point of view, your body has to burn it first. So any excess that you take in will be stored. If it's a meal, it's not going to make any difference. But as you say, if you decide to drink a bottle of wine, the next morning you're going to be hungover and you're going to want carbs, and
Yeah,
then the next
you're not going to be craving that protein.
and then that's becomes 2 days off track. Hey, a week's not going to matter. Actually, what I say to people, I don't do a lot of weight loss
Yeah. Yeah.
clients. It's not really my thing. But what I'd say to people is actually the body likes to be tricked. So once a week eating more is actually pretty good for
Yeah.
us
Yeah.
because your body gets used to eating less and
Yeah.
it adjusts. It's kind of sneaky like that. So having a day when you're eating really well, eating at maintenance or above maintenance, I actually think is a good thing to have. And it also stops you from kind of giving up as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why, I structure with my clients. I don't like them to be in a fat loss phase for much longer than 8 to 12 weeks before we take a bit of a diet break. We go into maintenance, or depending on how they are and how they're feeling. But I think to just be in diet phase for weeks and weeks and months, I just don't think is good for you at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that.
So let's talk about something that we both absolutely love: protein, lifting, and training nutrition. Um, what what would you say is the truth about protein, and how much do women actually need, and why are most women eating too little protein?
Look, I am of an age where I've seen everything, every
Yeah,
dietary cycle. So
yes,
I probably have a slightly different frame of reference, and therefore grew up in the kind of the low fat culture,
yes, yeah,
and I think that's probably why people generally undereat protein. There's a whole movement that says protein's not the problem, fibre is. I actually think it's both. I was quite pleased to see that the US guidance on protein intake per day has been improved, because I don't think it's enough. Why do I say that? I see so many osteoporotic
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
in midlife with bone and muscle wastage. We've all got aging relatives. You see them shrinking. They're not eating enough protein. And as we get older, one of my interests is aging. As we get older, back to the gut, we don't absorb protein that easily. So we have to eat more of it. So there is a case in the elderly and people who are recovering from an illness to have slightly more, depending on their illness. So, and if you're training, if you're looking to recomp, you probably need more. There is a law of diminishing returns. I think once you get over 2 grams per kilo of body weight. But I think the minimum in the UK is 0.8 grams per kilo.
Yeah. Which I think is still quite low, but
I think it's the absolute bare minimum. And if you are elderly, you will not be absorbing half of that, probably.
yeah.
Some people
Yeah.
may disagree with me. Your ladies are typically training 3 or 4 times a week and they're lifting heavy. I would want them to get to 2 to 2.2.
Yeah.
Now,
I usually start with, especially if it's a lady that's come to me that hasn't tracked before, hasn't really focused on protein before, I'll usually start them on 100 grams. So I won't look at any kind of number, it will be 100 grams. And then when they can consistently hit 100, that's when I'll kind of start to look to potentially increase it depending on what they need and what they're doing.
and that's not a lot. It's probably 2 chicken breasts and a portion of yogurt.
Yeah.
That's 100.
Yeah.
Roughly. The other thing where people, and I've fallen into this trap, worry about, oh my God, 2.2 grams, that's a lot of calories. Actually, it's not. It's probably about 600 calories.
Yeah.
Your decision then becomes, what else do you have with it? Are you having carbs or are you having fat with it? If you are petite, so I'm 5'3", you have to make a judgment call on that. If you want to eat 2.2 grams of protein per kilo of body weight, so I'm 60 kilos, I've got to make a judgment call on whether I'll that
Yeah.
or that.
Yeah.
Well, I can have both, but the portions might be smaller.
Yeah.
But that's how you do it. You prioritise your proteins, and you get you put your plants on your plate, and then you decide whether it's carb or fat to go with it.
Yeah.
So,
and I think from my point of view, I think protein it's great that we're all talking about protein these days. Protein Weetabix I saw the other day. Like, what are these? And I remember actually years ago, because I did an Instagram post about it. I'll see if it still exists. Protein milk. So, but I think it's great that we're talking about protein. Everyone that goes to the gym understands protein and how it helps muscles. But I think then some women go, but I don't want big muscles. I just want to be fit, healthy. I want to be strong. So I don't need that much protein. But I think it's getting across that protein does so much more than just build muscles. And also it keeps you full.
well, it does keep you full. If you're going to eat 2.2 grams per kilo of body weight, you've got to synthesize it.
Yes.
So you've got to train. If you eat 2.2 grams of protein and you don't train,
Yes.
some of that might get converted into fat.
Yeah.
But you need to do 2 things. You need to eat a lot of it, and then you need to use it. It's called muscle. It's called muscle protein synthesis.
Yes.
But if you are in deficit, and I know a lot of your women are, because I see it on the thread. You have, and we talk about that when we come to GLP-1s.
Yeah.
You have to eat your protein, and then you flex up and down your carbs and your fats to make the difference.
Yeah. And then, I mean, I've obviously mentioned that I do it, but do you think that nutrition should look different on training days versus rest days?
I think you have to be organised. I've tried it and I can't do it. I always know that if I'm training with you, I should eat a few more carbs for breakfast. Actually, the latest research would say you don't need as much carbs as you think you do if you're strength training. Might be different if you're doing a lot of cardio.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
But actually, if you're doing a lot of strength training, you do not need to mainline carbs.
No. No. And to be
Protein's
honest,
more important.
the only things I really change are pre and post workout, because obviously then I don't have that on a non-training day. So I don't, and I do change my calories. So I do have more calories on a training day, but that's from a very personal standpoint of I'm trying to eat more and I'm trying to eat. I struggle with that. So, but mentally, I eat more because I'm hungrier on a training day. So that's literally the only reason I do that. Like normally, previously, I didn't used to change things.
So what I do, so I eat the same most levels most days. I eat 3 meals a day. On training days, I eat 4. So
Yeah,
my famous 40-gram protein breakfast is split into 2.
yeah,
So I eat half before and half when I get back.
yeah,
So it's actually still the same, because I would sooner have a really nice lunch on a Sunday
yes,
with a glass of wine.
yeah,
So you have to work out a plan which works for you, and not particularly follow somebody on the internet who does it in a particular way. So it works for you to eat more on training days. For me, I can't do it because I just get completely confused. So I know what my structure is, I know what my plan is, but I just split my breakfast.
And then, someone also asked, like, what should women actually be eating before and after lifting to build real strength and shape? And I think especially as women, we get so caught up in what should we be doing? What should we be eating before? What should we be like? It doesn't matter what you should be doing, really. Like, just eat what you enjoy. I mean, I personally keep my fats away from my training. So if I train, I usually train in the morning. So my breakfast will be carbs and a little bit of protein. And then my meal afterwards will be high protein and some carbs. I keep my fats to further away from my training just because I know that they slow down digestion, and pre and post training, I want to absorb those nutrients as quickly as possible. But I'm not saying that that is the only way and what everybody should do. It works for me.
Yeah, that's right. You've got to do what works for you. I mean, what I would say is eating's like training. It's about being consistent, and you need a consistent fuel supply. If you are the type of person that only eats twice a day because you've been told to fast, that's really hard to get a
Yeah,
constant fuel supply
yeah,
in 2 meals, I would say. So I actually would say split it between 3 and 4. We do not need to be grazing all day, because that's just a way to ruin. But you've got 3 or 4 meals a day, and you've got a consistent supply of fuel. You are fueling. There are some people may have read that you have to have a big protein bolus straight after training.
yeah.
You don't need to.
A certain amount of time.
No, I think some of the research would say even after 4 hours,
Yeah,
it's still okay, as long as it's coming through. What the research does say is make sure it's a decent portion, because a small portion of protein just gets absorbed by the liver. It doesn't get into the muscles. So you've got to get it into the muscles. So that's why you start with a big portion in the morning, and then just fuel regularly through the day. But if you and I train, so if I get back from the gym at 9:30, I'll eat the second part of my breakfast. but I could go to lunch.
Yeah.
If I'm busy, I've got something
Yeah.
to do, and it's not the end of the world. It really doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think people get so caught up in all those little things. It's the same. I mean, I know we're not talking about supplements today, but it's the same with supplements. Like, what supplements can I take? This, and it's like, well, those supplements are like so far down on that priority list if your sleep isn't in order, if your hydration isn't in order, if your nutrition is not great. There's no point doing all the, so there's no point stressing about how quickly after training you should eat your protein if you're not getting enough protein in throughout the day. Like, that's more important, in my opinion.
I think that's right. People would always say, as a nutritionist, you probably put food first. I don't.
Yeah.
Sleep.
Yes. Yeah.
Sleep's number one. Exercise, I go for number two. Third, I'd go fibre. Fourth is protein. Now that's a long way down. I've
Yeah.
hydration in there
Yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
But protein is a long way down on my list. Your list would be different.
Yeah.
But if you're not sleeping properly and
Yeah.
you're not
And then
moving,
it's harder to do all the other things.
everything else is noise.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
important.
And I think what I would add about building real strength and shape is what you eat matters. And that's why, like, I actually think tracking calories is very, very useful. I think it gives you knowledge. I think it helps you understand what's in your food. But if you get so caught up in calories, you can eat all the diet foods, all the low fat sauces. Like, you can probably fit in donuts, things like that. But you're not going to get the body shape and tone that you want because you're just looking at calories. But what those foods are within those calories really, really matter, which is why I also encourage my clients to look at their plate and, like you said, build, 1/4 protein, half the plate fruit, veg, whatever, and then pick your carbs or your fats. Because if you just look at calories, you're not going to build the body that you want to build.
Yeah, I mean, food is information, really. It's chemistry.
Yeah.
And going back to the gut takes the signal from the food, and then it behaves accordingly.
Yeah.
So a 100-gram donut and 100 grams of broccoli will have two very, very different. 100 grams of protein will all send different signals and all do different things in the body. So it is important. Look, some people can't count calories because they have disordered eating.
Yes. Yeah.
So they have to do things in a different way. So I would just say, look, protein and plants, build a plate,
Yes.
and eat a range of things. If you don't have an eating disorder, but you don't like the idea of tracking, but you're still overweight, what I would say is spend a week tracking.
That's what I say. Yeah.
People always underestimate what they're putting in their mouth.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also knowing, I think, for people that do track, it's not 100% accurate. It is an estimation, but it's a pretty good estimation. So, but don't get too caught up. It's why quite often I'll give my clients a range, a calorie range. So I want you to hit between this calorie range, this lower calorie range, this lower calorie number, sorry, and this higher calorie number. So as long as you're within those two numbers, you're good. Rather than you have to hit 1500 dead on. And some people will get to like 1510 and be like, oh my God, I failed. Oh, I went over my calories. Just because they're so like all or nothing thinking. So, a range is quite good because it's not 100% accurate, but it does teach you things, in my opinion.
It does, but if you're away and you can't track, 'cause you know how to do it,
Yeah.
just stick to protein and plants.
Yeah.
And if you're just on 3 meals a day, protein and plants, some carbs if I feel that I can have them, then you probably don't need to track because you know what you're doing. So it's a very emotive topic, food.
Yeah, it is. It is. And so going on to the last kind of segment, so to speak, um, what do you think separates women who maintain their results long term from those who just yo-yo forever?
They're consistent and they're not all or nothing. So there are people that feel a need to be perfect. If they've got their day off, that it's the end of the world. It doesn't matter. It's the day. And also, they don't undereat. We're conditioned to undereat. So even if you're in a calorie deficit of 50 calories a day, that's fine. But we're conditioned to undereat, we underfuel, and then we do this all or nothing. So I think that's probably, I would
It's
say,
the biggest issue that I find with my clients, actually. Same with training, oh, I've missed a day. I can't believe I've missed one of my training sessions. It's one day. Don't worry about it. You're consistent 80% of the time. Um, it's why I don't stress about Christmas. If I don't, because I'm a bit weird, but if I wanted to take a week off over Christmas from my training and looking at my nutrition, that's 1 week out of the year. Going on holiday, it's such a small, I think people just, they look at it as this, oh my God, this is such a big thing. I've gone on holiday, I've eaten so much, I've drunk so much. They don't zoom out and look at the whole year, like what percentage of that is of your whole year. You're not going to ruin things just because you've had a week off.
no. As long as if you go back to, it's not like a discipline, it's like a structure and like a strategy. Once you've identified the strategy that works for you, how many meals a day you're going to have, you build around protein and plants, then you've always got something to go back to, or it's always your favourite breakfast. You've always got something to go back to.
Yeah. So coming up towards the end, this is a big question. What's the single most damaging nutrition myth you see holding women back?
Um, Undereating. Every time.
Yeah,
Undereating.
yeah. And I think people get quite shocked by that because a lot of people think there are a lot of people that overeat. There are. But undereating is just as big and just as damaging in I've been there, and I still do it to a certain degree. So my that you've got two. I mean, you've got more than two people, but you've got the two different types of people. You've got the people that stress eat, and then you've got the people like me that get stressed and don't eat. Um, and I think there's so much kind of attention on those people that overeat, but there's not so much speaking to women that undereat.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what I find.
Yeah, and look, I'm not an eating disorder specialist, but it's actually understanding what those drivers are to be able to resolve that. But I think generally, as a habit, women are mindful
Yeah,
because they're body conscious. So generally, they'll undereat and actually don't understand how much you can eat
yeah,
if you get the food right.
that's exactly it.
You can eat an
Yeah,
awful lot of food
yeah,
if you
if
get it right.
yeah. I don't know. Did you ever watch America's Next Top Model?
No.
No, I didn't watch it at the time, but I've just watched the documentary. Oh my God. I understand why I'm picking up so many pieces of these women. Like it was like one woman was praised because they could get her fingers around her waist like that. There was one woman who I'd say she was smaller than me, and she was their plus size model. It was absolutely horrendous. I need to do a few bits on it. but I can see why and where we got that from. I've always been a little bit like, I know people blame the media for stuff, and I've always been like, oh, it's not the media's fault, but I can now, from watching that, I can see how much it was just rammed down our throats that smaller was better.
Yeah, there's a lot of fat shaming, and there's also a lot of skinny shaming going on as well at the
Yeah,
moment.
yeah, yeah,
So I know I think you have to move the conversation. It's about being strong into old age. You don't
yeah,
want osteoporosis.
yeah,
You don't want muscle wastage.
yeah,
It might not matter now when you're in your 30s and your 40s. I have an age where I have colleagues breaking bones. They're shrinking and they think it's great because suddenly they're small, but they're losing muscle.
yeah. Yeah. And that actually leads us really, really nicely onto the GLP-1s, the Ozempics, that culture. Like, I'm actually not against it at all, but I just think that people need to be aware that if they're going to do it, they still, I mean, strength training is even more important to them.
Yeah, I mean, you still need a strategy and you still need a structure. So there are nutritionists that specialise in helping people taking GLP-1s to make sure they eat properly. Because what the research says a couple of things. Look, I think there's a place for them. There are people who have some lifelong metabolic health conditions that are setting themselves up for diabetes and cancer. And they are really good candidates for a
Yeah.
GLP-1,
Yeah.
but it still needs support and help around it. So what happens when you take a GLP-1 is you're in a calorie deficit and you're going to lose muscle mass. Now, you and I both know if you're in a calorie deficit, to not lose muscle mass, you've got to keep your protein up.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why we talk about 2 grams per kilo body weight, blah, blah. So when you take a GLP-1 medication, some of the research shows that half of the weight they lose is muscle.
Wow. I didn't realize it was that much.
So muscle and bone. So you're losing your bone as well, your bone strength. Now, this is where it gets interesting. So say you're on a normal calorie deficit, you might lose 10% muscle if you're not eating enough protein. So you can lose up to half.
Yeah.
You stop taking the med and the weight comes back. But the weight doesn't come back as muscle. It comes back as fat.
Yeah.
So now you're in the worst of all
Yeah.
worlds,
Yeah.
where you put half your weight back on, but you're fatter because your body composition's changed. So what I would say is if you're taking a GLP-1 medication, eat your protein. I don't care if you eat packets of chicken from Marks and Spencer's that's ready to go, which is, by the way, what I eat when I'm on the move. Eat your protein. You have to defend against muscle loss. And I know you're not hungry, but eat your protein
Yeah. And fiber?
and fibre.
Yeah.
Um, and it might be fibre that because you're just not hungry, so it might have to be sources of fibre which are not really going to make your tummy swell.
Right. Yeah.
But it's protein and fibre, and you can still, and you're well in a calorie deficit without compromising your longer term health. I've seen, so carry on training. Please carry on training, but don't lose your muscle mass. If you can afford to know what your body composition is before you start, then monitor it.
Yeah.
It's just like another way of dealing with anybody who's trying to lose weight. It's just another way of doing it, but you just need to monitor it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all very fascinating stuff. I find nutrition fascinating. It's not something that I like to go into in great depth with my clients, just purely because there's so much to it, and there are a lot of eating disorders or disordered eating out there, which I obviously have a duty of care to my clients, and I am not a nutritional therapist. I am qualified, but I err on the side of caution because I care about them, and I will always signpost them to somebody else if I feel like what they need is beyond me. Um, but I think this gives a really, really good insight, and it's actually really good to chat with you and know that most of what I think is pretty much the same as you. So yeah, it's always nice to have a bit of a conversation with someone that
I
shares.
think I think if you're doing things, what we've talked about today, getting some basic pillars in place.
Yeah,
If you've got chronic conditions, if you've got heart disease, if you've got diabetes, if you've got Alzheimer's, if you've got cancers, it's different.
yes, yeah,
You need a different
yeah,
way of thinking about nutrition. But for 80% of the population who are healthy, keeping the pillars consistent are likely to keep you in good health for longer without getting to the stage, some of my clients, where we're having to try and restore things and reverse things. You don't want to get to that. You really don't. It's not a good place to be. So setting yourself up now is by getting the pillars in place is a good way to
yeah,
start.
yeah. And like honestly, if I can do it, anyone can do it. Genuinely, I tell this to so many people, but I used to have 3 sugars in my tea, 4 sugars in my coffee. I'd eat biscuits for breakfast, cake for breakfast. I don't think I knew what protein was. Like,
Imagine that in you.
yeah, that's it. Like, because there's no evidence. There's no like, I didn't take photos of myself back then. I hated myself back then. Like, there's no evidence of me really like really pre-training. I was, oh my God, I had the puffiest, roundest face just from all the inflammation. I was sluggish, I was tired, I never wanted to do anything. I don't know how Kieran stayed married to me during that time. Like, honestly, I was such a different person. So if I can do it, literally anybody can do it. Like, you just have to want it enough. And again, you can't expect, as cheesy as it sounds, you can't expect something to change if you don't change anything. And I remember when I had a nutrition coach, and I had one that she really focused on calories, and as long as you hit your calories, it was fine. I then moved to another coach, and she focused much more on macros. And I remember but I didn't realize that at the time. I did my first check in, and she just tore me to pieces basically and was like, there's no excuse, la, 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 la. And I cried my eyes out. And that night I just had chicken for dinner because I was like, I've only got protein left in my surprise on my macros. And I really want this. I really want this. And although I'm not recommending everybody cry and just eat chicken for dinner, like that that was my realization of like, if you want to change, you have to change the way you're eating. You have to do this. Like, and then that was the start of me looking at my food and actually understanding what I was eating and what was going to help me and all things like that. And yeah, so yeah, I'm just I'm just a normal person who has been there with all of the struggles that people don't really see. They don't understand that I've had those struggles. I think people just think, same with the gym. They think I've always been able to do a pull up and a push up. Like, no, I haven't. Absolutely not.
I think we've all got things that I guess define us. So I was always the one at work that had the reputation for having green smoothies in the fridge.
Okay. Yeah.
So who's got the Shrek smoothies? Because I thought it was healthy.
Yeah.
There's no protein in it.
Yeah.
It was all vegetables, loads of fibre.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And I used to think that you couldn't put on weight just from eating fruit. And I was
Yeah.
like, you if you eat enough of it, of course you can. Like,
But then my hair started to fall out.
oh,
And because I wasn't eating enough protein. And I was not getting enough B bits, not getting enough iron, not enough thyroid support. You know, and you think, well, I'm eating healthily. I'm eating all this green stuff. What's wrong with me? So, look, you know, we've all, and I've had my era of living on lean cuisines
Yeah.
as well. So, you know, what's really good about nutrition now is that there's a lot more research. A lot of it's rubbish
Yeah.
and not very well done. But I have not seen one single study that says a plant fibre is bad for you.
Yeah.
Even if there are nightshades in it. Oh, what are shades? Somebody's going to say to me. Get the fibre in.
Yeah. My little saying for nutrition, just eat like an adult. Like eat, you know, and people know what that means. And they know, and it will relate to them in different ways, and they'll understand what, you know, everyone will take it very differently, but they know what that means.
Yeah, real food.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've loved chatting to you today. Is there anything that you feel like we haven't covered that you wanted to talk about, or any kind of advice you would give anybody in general?
So we talked about the goal not eating less.
Yeah.
So it's about eating in a way that regulates appetite. So that's protein and plants. Structure
Yeah.
over discipline.
Yeah.
So that win every time. So it's a strategy problem. We've talked about muscle being a massive metabolic sink for overall health. We've talked about the problem not being fat or carb, it's ultra processed foods. Fibre is a miracle ingredient. You probably cite protein ahead of me, but I would put fibre first. And then I would say, when you think you're hungry, it's probably not you, it's your environment. Just check your environment.
Yeah.
That's the first thing.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm sure that this episode will go down really, really well. And I am sure that people will go, oh, I had loads of questions that I didn't ask. So I'm sure I'll be inviting you back, Karen. Sorry.
Oh, well, we can do a follow-up. You know, I'm full of all sorts of weird and wonderful trivia.
And hopefully next time I won't be hearing, basically all I can hear, hopefully it's not being picked up by the microphone, but my radiator in front of me is just gurgling away. I don't know what they're doing. So yeah, if there's, like I say, hopefully
I can't hear anything.
Okay.
So it's probably okay, but it's really windy here today, so you might get wind noise pick up on the mic.
But we make, and I when we booked it late last night, and he could come this morning, and I was like, oh, should I postpone Karen? And I was like, no, do you know what? That's real life. Life happens. You know, life isn't perfect. You can't wait for that perfect time. And that's the same with nutrition. You know, just start, make a start.
Exactly right. Well, I am going to do my training session now.
Yeah.
Because I was travelling yesterday and didn't do it. I've got meetings this afternoon. I will probably, but I think I've probably got a different workout today, but I'll just carry on.
Yeah.
I don't feel bad that I've missed a day.
No, good.
I'm sure I'll catch up.
Really not the end of the world. Exactly. Yeah, I'm training at some point today. Don't know what time yet.
All right, Rachel. Lovely to see you.
Thank you so much, Karen.
See you next week.
Speak to you soon. Bye.
Bye. Bye.